Hey, it is Wednesday, April 30th, the end of the year. And we're Direct Line without a guest. Our guest was Steve Whisler, Board of Education from Carroll County, sends his apologies. And he is attending the Teacher of the Year Award in Carroll County. I hope you're enjoying the dinner and hope they have some really nice pass-through hors d'oeuvres and so on. And the food's good, but it's a rubber chicken dinner, Steve. So we're about to have one of those recently, too. So tonight our panelists are David Shepard, and you all know our lovely hostess of the mostest, Jackie Saxton. And then we have our Executive Director Emeritus, Corinne Frank of the MDGOP. Who now
in the background.
Yeah. By the way, Corinne, Dave's a cat guy, too.
Yeah, I had a cat once jump up on the table and then turned the rear, lifted the tail right to the camera. So I think he was giving his views on the politics of the day. So,
so normally I get all the kids and animals out, but I kind of ran in to turn this on real quick.
They're great. So we do a round robin on all of our issues of the week, so to speak, so far on Wednesday, and it's been a busy week, and we're only halfway through the week. President Trump celebrated his first 100 days yesterday. And it was totally awesome. He had a great event in Michigan with Gretchen Whitmer and a few other, a couple 100,000 fans of the President Trump at the rally there. Mm-hmm. And I think, that crowd was a lot bigger than the AOC Bernie Sanders No Oligarchs tour.
Yeah, but I just add real quick. I thought he was on form. I thought it was. I watched the rally and it was kind of like the olden days. And one last thing I thought was funny was when he kind of milks the crowd, eggs them on. He goes, "Should it be Crooked Joe or should we call him Sleepy Joe?" And then he stops and says, "Okay, how many for Crooked Joe?" And here's cheers. How many for Sleepy Joe?
Well, so and if nothing else, a Trump presidency is always entertaining. I mean, the man at his core is a showman. This is what he is. Yeah. So
he gives better monologues than the late night comedians, to be honest with you. He's better at it than they are. He really can give a monologue.
And as one of our newest writers and contributors to Montgomery County Republican Club, Ian Schwartz, Trump's first 100 days versus Biden's first 100 days. One built a country, the other built an app schedule. I think that sums it up for the entire Biden presidency, the NAP schedule. Corinne, thoughts?
So I was actually just thinking, I wonder what everybody's highlights of the last 100 days would be. And I was kind of thinking, maybe we could go around and sort of talk about, like, what do you think is the most impactful? What do you think is the best for the country? What do you like? What you don't like? And I would kick that off by saying securing the border. Huge win for Trump. I think that's going to be, that's what he was instructed to do by the American people. He's definitely done it. And, there's a lot of things that people agree and disagree with him about, but he definitely secured the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think
that is the hallmark of the first 100 days.
I think so.
And the deportations, 69,000 very, very bad people have been deported.
Well, and it just proves the fact that everything that Joe Biden said, that I can't do this without congressional action, was just proved completely wrong.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if you saw on the 100th day when he had the news press briefing, when he had the mugshots lining the driveway.
Right where they have the camera set up, so they can't ignore it.
And the press was whining about that.
MSNBC was whining about that.
Savage troll, but in the best of ways.
But I think that's a good segue into mine. I think for me, the highlight is what Caroline Leavitt has done with the press briefing room and opening it up to new media. Because, everyone knows that trust in the media is at an all-time low. And for my generation, and I would argue even for older generations now, most people aren't getting their news from traditional media sources. They're getting them from podcasters, they're getting them from social media. So having that kind of representation in the White House press briefing and bringing in new types of questions and new ideas.
Remember,
and of course,
Jackie, David and I used to get stone tablets for the newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. And
Like
plugging our good friend Matthew Foldy, who was
I
there
was,
a couple
that's what I was
weeks ago.
thinking you were going to say.
He didn't tell me in advance. I just happened to be watching Fox that day, thank God. And they're like, Matthew Foldy of the Washington Reporter. I was like, I know him.
I know. I saw him. I was like, oh my gosh, Matthew
Like,
Foldy.
it's so exciting to see more people of my generation who create a different type of media coming in and being able to contribute to the news. So that's mine.
I was really excited about that. I knew you were going to bring Matt in, so that was awesome.
But like I said, I think the biggest thing is immigration and the deportations. And I think the tariff stuff's going to work itself out, frankly.
I believe that as well.
Dave, your thoughts on the first 100?
Yeah, securing the borders, number one. The other thing that struck me in the presidency is just the difference in activity, where you have Trump who's go, 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 to the point even people complain he's doing too much, working too hard. And you had Joe Biden, who basically, and I wrote in my column, he basically has adopted the hours of a semi-retired dentist, Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 5. And so it's just such a remarkable difference there. That's the first thing that struck me. But I think the border, the most important thing. And then number two, I think DOGE and going after the spending, which these two ladies probably weren't even alive then. But the last time we did look at reinventing government would have been, I guess, reinventing government with Al Gore and Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. I think that's the last time they really looked at the bureaucracy and what do we start cutting? And
he was president when I was born, I think.
Yeah, you probably were born at the time. But the point is that it's time for a relook at that because, look, every organization wastes money. And why is the federal government exempt from reorganization? And I'd also point out that there's like 2 million employees. Do you really believe, does anyone really believe that out of 2 million employees, none of them should be fired? None of them are doing a bad job. I mean, that's just stupid. So it's time to start looking at that.
Right, yeah, running the country like a business, I think, and surrounding himself with business people, right? I think Scott Bessent has been like the greatest surprise. I didn't really know who he was, but he's come out as like the rising star of the administration thus far.
He's
to that point. I saw a really great interview with Linda McMahon, and she said, he sent me in there to close shop. He's doing this, he's doing that. One thing he's told me is, view this as an audit. And she's like, in business, that's what you do. You audit yourself frequently. And that's all this is an audit to make sure that we are being efficient. And she said, if anybody has a problem with that, that's just absurd. So I liked her take on it when she sort of discussed what that was and the DOGE efforts. I thought she had a really good interview when she talked about it.
And if I could just add one quick thing about, people say it's disruptive and all, but the reality is when you make major change, I think Musk had the right approach. That is, you just show up. And then you start asking people, so what are you doing? What's going on? You just have to do it. You got to take them by surprise because the bureaucracy can protect itself. Yeah. And so you've got to.
And remember, we've taken out 275,000 federal jobs cuts. And, the government is still moving along. The mail is being delivered. Social security checks are being sent out.
I'm curious, though, because if they're going to do, they've done this within the agencies, but are they going to do like what Rand Paul does with the budget every year, where he has these line items of these crazy things that we're investing in? Are they going to do that since we're in the middle of the reconciliation process as well? I'm curious if that's going to come up.
Well, I don't think it will, because I think the most important thing is that we get the tax cuts made permanent. Frankly, that is the most important thing. So if we have to pay for, say, a moonshine still in Rand Paul's district, that's fine.
But the amount of moonshine stills across the country, like the number of things in there, I would wager would outnumber the $160 billion that Musk has saved so far.
I think we've got responsible members on our side. Remember, we got both houses. But it doesn't matter. This is like 1,000-page bills that have been there for years and years. I think they've learned their lessons from the bridge to nowhere days,
Well, the thing is, a lot of times they say a lot of this is in the grand scheme of the budget. They say, oh, you're talking pennies. But, I think about from 30 years ago, I heard the same argument. Oh, it won't really add up to much money. It's really entitlements and all. And I generally agree. But if you go 30 years and you're wasting change, well, I think it's going to add up to a lot of money.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I hope they go back and do that line item budget audit.
Yeah.
When I was on the school board, we had this too. We would have this argument all the time. Oh, it's $100,000, but really it's 0.001% of our, $1.68 billion budget. I'm like, yeah, but $100,000 to me, the taxpayer, like I could pay, almost pay my house off. I could send my kids to 4 years of college, both of them together, so $100,000 in the scheme of things, no, is not a lot. But when you're taking it from people who have mortgages and food bills that they can barely pay, it is a lot.
Yep.
Remember, Corinne, the Montgomery County Council, they make a lot of money. And
just moved to Montgomery and Run, right? I guess that's a plan.
And they feel that's not enough money. I remember I was talking to somebody, they go, well, we're not allowed to have a job. Yeah, and there's no way to change the statute, right? Because
why are they not allowed to have a job?
Evidently, Montgomery County statute says you're not allowed to, and there's no way possible to change that statute, is there? And I was talking to Evan Glass, and he goes, no, it's sad. He goes, I wish we could. I'm like, yeah.
No, every other county does that. It's fine.
Yeah. Right. It's different when your county's paying you enough that it basically is a full-time job salary versus I think Mason Carter was telling me that he gets $30,000 from Frederick County.
I got 8 on the board, 8,000. You're supposed to have, gainful employment and serve your community. It's not supposed to be,
let me just say, someone's got to pay for Evan Glass's junkets to Korea, South Korea, or North Korea. He can get some new wacky ideas, or have his ice cream on the boardwalk at Mako. Who's paying for that? It's you and I, the taxpayers,
Yeah.
Well, we're paying for more to go over to Asia too, and
and for Van Holland to go to El Salvador.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, exactly. Oh
gosh, I
love the margaritas on the table, and he's like, "Well, I didn't drink them." Well, not when they were filming.
But I guess if we're going back to the original topic of the first 100 days, I think just Trump, without even trying, making the Democrat Party have a full come apart. I mean, the DNC is getting ready to put David Hogg out to pasture.
They're about to have their civil war.
There's no clear leader of the party, and it looks like the direction they're going in is tripling down on far left, which is going to do great for us come the midterms. We might not get the shellacking that people anticipate that we would. So it's just watching them have a full, the stuff that they're attempting, trying to force viral moments with these weird videos, or you have Booker in his 25-hour speech, or them just sitting on the Capitol steps.
They did the singing, yes.
What do they think this is accomplishing? It's not. And even CNN was calling Pramila Jayapal out yesterday. She said something about how the Republican budget is going to slash Medicaid, and CNN was like, no. And it's not even Scott Jennings, one of the actual Democrats, is like, no, they're literally talking about getting rid of the fraud. They're even the media is not even buying into their crap anymore.
Well, remember, their sit-in they had was sponsored by feelings, not facts. Let's just remember that.
Yeah. Who was it? Who put the book out? Was it Jake Tapper? It was one of the legacy media.
Yeah, Jake
about
Tapper.
Biden, about the mishandling of the Biden coverage. And it's like, you were front row and
you were part of it.
Yeah. But now he wants to capitalize on the media not doing their job, which led to the mistrust of the media. And now he's going to write a book about that.
Or the guy, was it Alex Thompson, who said that during his speech that he got an award at the Correspondents' Dinner for reporting on Biden's decline. Well, yeah, after it was evidently obvious to everybody.
After the debate.
How about any of the Republican-leaning journalists who've been reporting on it for 4 years?
I mean, if you think about it, if there's one thing that has harmed our entire country more than I think any other thing, the fact that the media cannot be trusted to do their job is a huge detriment to our country. I mean, who is they're supposed to be the watchdogs, and they've just, decided to be gainfully employed as the pack arm of the Democrat Party at this point.
By the way, let me just share something with you guys. Team America. That's our friend Matthew right there in the background.
Mm-hmm.
We have Sean Hannity, Loring, and we got Jesse Waters. This is a contrast from what it was.
Is that Richard Nixon?
Yes, no, that's actually the picture of him and Chris Plant.
Oh, I thought it was Richard Nixon.
No, I've actually. Okay, I thought I had it in here, but I don't.
Oh well. Dwight, you're funny. Oh, I like the 100 Days of Winning. That's awesome. Look at that.
Which one? Oh yeah, this one right
The
here.
blue.
No, down.
The blue one. The 100 Days of Winning.
Oh yeah,
this great. That's a great graphic.
This is the one I was going to use, but I used something else yesterday instead. But okay, this is let's see, what's the other one? This is the one. Dave, you remember this one, right?
Yes, I do.
MRC put this out.
Yes, I do. Yes.
So this is ours.
Yeah.
This there, guys.
Fortunately, the ladies here were spared of those three. I don't think they know them really. Peter Jennings was bad. Rather was bad.
I mean, I don't think, does Corinne even remember President George W. Bush? I mean, are you even old enough to remember?
Yes, of course I do. Are you kidding me?
Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. Yeah. Good old W.
Yeah.
W.
White and I were lucky to live under the greatest president, Ronald Reagan. So we were lucky on that.
Yeah.
So was I.
Okay, good.
No, you weren't alive during Reagan, were you?
I was. Yes, I was.
But the worst of them all was without a doubt.
Hey, look, I was a contemporary of Spiro Agnew also, so.
I was under his second term.
Well, Dwight and I were born we were still around, which probably too young to really remember, but Carter, I still have vague memories of Carter.
That is before my time.
Yeah, so Carter before you. And Carter was bad, but Biden was worse because I don't think Carter wanted to destroy the country. Biden, I think, was fine with it, but I don't.
I think that's why Carter was willing to die a happy man, because he was no longer the worst president in history.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. He'd been surpassed by Biden, Joseph Robinette Biden. Yeah. So, but with the press not doing their job, one anecdote here is: you remember the Robert Hur report when Hur interviewed him, and in effect concluded that Biden wouldn't be mentally competent to stand trial.
Yep. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The thing I'm thinking is, wait a minute, he found that out. What about the reporters? They couldn't find that out. So
they knew.
Weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The emperor's got no clothes on. They dare not say that. You know, the emperor's new clothes. You know.
But the press has a long time history, though, of protecting Democrats. Remember JFK? JFK not only had the affairs, but his health. He was actually a very sick person, and nobody ever really knew it. You'd see him as healthy and vigorous, but behind the scenes, the guy had Addison's disease. He had the nearly crippling back pain with his back rose. He had all these things, and nobody ever knew it.
Well, harkening back to the Bush days, you will remember this then, because if you're talking about the Bush era, do you remember people used to say, oh, you are negatively portraying Bush more than you are portraying Gore? And when they were debating, there was these big, the right was clamoring saying you're being unfair. And the legacy media was like, oh, no. And they would put, how much time each candidate would have, and they would be relatively the same. But their overall coverage was always bent to the left. And one good thing about Trump is, for Bush, they tried to pretend like they weren't, skewed. But when Trump came along, one good thing was, they just couldn't control themselves anymore. So they don't even try to pretend like they're fair anymore.
And Corinne, this goes to my age. They were anti-Nixon. They were anti-Ford. They were anti-Agnew.
Well, I don't remember Nixon. I'm sorry, Dwight. I was not born then. But I do remember Bush. I definitely.
I was a contemporary of Richard Nixon and Spiro. I was born the year they took basically dashed George McGovern's hopes of ever being elected dog catcher, let alone president.
Yeah.
But that swatting that he took of, anyways. But they've always been this way. I mean, they've said bad. I mean, remember when Bob Orlick was governor? They said, "Oh, he's such a right-wing extremist." Blah blah blah.
I don't remember that. I wasn't really. I don't know. I didn't catch that, but I wasn't super looped into.
But I mean, you remember Larry Hogan? Larry Hogan was a right-wing ideologue that needed to be removed.
You'd be hard pressed to find someone who would call him that these days.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't think anybody. Nobody on our side even called him a right-wing ideologue back when in 18 or even 14. By the way, speaking of, and I mean, you had Mark Elrick, who was like thrilled when Larry Hogan's second term was. Now I know and basically Mark Elrick is like, I hope we spend that surplus in my county because we need more buses, money for electric buses that nobody rides, evidently. while he rides around in a $120,000 Chevy Suburban.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's always the next guy that's worse. So in other words, they say, well, Bush was bad, but I'll tell you, his son is even worse. And, I'll tell you, Romney's even worse. And, I'll tell you, Trump's even worse. So it'll be the next person will be the worst.
Remember, John McCain was a horrible person. Remember, they hated John McCain. They hated.
And then he was like a martyr after he passed away.
Yeah, once he
Mitt
loses,
Romney
they like
never
him.
paid his
Once
taxes.
you lose,
Remember that? He gave people cancer.
I think that's a good point that you made, David. And one thing that they do is they sort of do, okay, well, we survived this, so clearly it's not that bad, but the next guy is bad. But you see that even from Trump's 45th to his 47th, they're going to do all these things. They're going to put people in camps. And we're like, no, he's been president once. And you guys said that the first time, and it didn't happen. So you can't really say that again, but they do. It's ridiculous.
That's true.
It's absurd.
Yeah,
and when MSNBC goes under, they're going to blame Trump for it.
Yeah.
Well, that would be a win for him. That would be a.
But do you guys remember there was that time where Elon was floating buying MSNBC and then just having it run rocket launches on repeat?
Funny.
Well, MSNBC is on the auction. They do want to sell it. Comcast does not want MSNBC, so who knows?
Because it's not a moneymaker these days.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be part of the News Nation empire. Like, they'd still be left-leaning, but they won't be as left-leaning.
I think if anyone's able to fully make a completely nonpartisan, non-biased media source that's like literally just like spitting facts with no bias, that person would make a lot of money.
By the way, you guys may not remember this, and you're going to say you're making that up. But did you know Tucker Carlson and Michael Savage had shows on MSNBC?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember that either. I don't know.
Tucker had a show, and so did and Tucker had like a prime time show. He was up against Hannity, I think.
What?
Or Bill? Actually, no, Bill O'Reilly. He was up against Bill O'Reilly, not Hannity.
I liked Bill O'Reilly back in the day.
I wonder what he's doing these days.
I used to watch him with my parents.
He's Newsmax, and then you have Michael Savage, who basically makes Rush Limbaugh look like a moderate.
He's very conspiratorial. He's kind of conspiratorial, so it's like.
Well, I think people would say the same about Tucker Carlson.
Didn't he have a show on NET?
Big time, yeah.
Didn't Michael Savage have a show on NET? He had like a Sunday
I don't remember that. I don't remember him there. I remember some people like him, but never Savage.
Or was he just on with John Lofton?
John Lofton, I remember. Very annoying person. But he was Savage, like that same sort of person.
By the way, here's a little secret. Dave and I are gonna shock you guys with. Major Garrett from CBS News?
Yep.
You know where he got his start in broadcasting? Working for Paul Weyrich at NET.
I was an associate producer of on his show, so I dealt with him every day.
Yeah, and during the Whitewater hearings, Larry Klayman, Tom Fitton, Marianne Ferguson, and Major Garrett were doing analysis of the day's hearings. Yeah, CBS. I bet you didn't know that.
Did not know that.
Larry Klayman's claim to infamy was, and I've heard different spins on this one, that he had sued his mother. What happened was he was really raised by his grandparents, and so there was some legal case he was involved in, and so they used to tease him, or he used to, behind his back, people said, yeah, the guy sued his mother. So not a particularly nice guy. Not a particularly nice guy, and I never.
That's why he's not running Judicial Watch anymore.
I know. Fitton. I knew Tom Fitton. He worked.
Tom and I worked. Yeah, Tom and I worked for Don at Accuracy Media at the same time. When Tom left, I was the first one in Don's office saying, "Hey, Don, can I have Tom's office?" And Tom made a funny comment. He goes, "My seat isn't even cold. You're already taking measurements for your servers in here and so on." But yeah. But back to the 100 days. I know we should save this stuff for Dr. Politics, Dave. Other stuff's happening this week in the news. Tomorrow we have, today we had these protesters in D.C. doing their chants.
It's another day that ends in Y.
Yep.
They decide to block traffic. Now, here's a question for you. pretend. I mean, we're reasonable people. We're Republicans. We're reasonable people, right? If somebody were blocking the road while
Yeah, I
you're
don't
going to
care
work,
who you are
would
or
you
what
be
your cause
sympathetic?
is.
Would you be
Don't care.
sympathetic? I mean,
No,
let's say
I like the videos that they have of the climate protesters doing that, and the guys like just get out of the car and like physically
Yes,
move them,
moving them,
like 'cause,
dragging
again,
them across
it's not. First of all, it's counterproductive because if your
Yep.
big thing is the climate, well, you know, these people are just sitting here emitting more gas into the air. Second of all, you're not only just inconveniencing people who are trying to go to work. What if there's a person having a medical emergency? What if somebody there's an ambulance trying to get through, a fire truck, right? So it just makes you an asshole if you do that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
There's better ways to get your point across. Nobody's going to support your cause.
And throwing
if that's what you're
soup on famous artworks, don't agree with that either.
Oh, yeah.
Stop throwing temper tantrums.
By the way, I got some breaking news for you. We're alive. Earth Day started 55 years ago. We were supposed to be dead by now.
Yeah, that's what Greta
Burned to a
Thunberg
crisp or
did.
frozen, doesn't matter. And I don't know, did you guys get the invitation? The planet Earth had a birthday bash, 55 years of avoiding extinction.
Well, remember it was.
Is this supposed to be like Y2K or what?
No, we were supposed to die of an ice age.
Yeah,
when we were kids before you were born, they said it was
inconvenient
an ice age.
truth and all that crap. Yeah.
Remember Skylab, Dave? When Skylab, we were all going to die because Skylab was going to crash down
to the earth.
We were supposed to die in 2012.
Yep.
That was the second coming. We were all, you know. But I mean,
Greta Thunberg said we'd.
Yeah. So, if you'll recall, we had Y2K, we had 2012 because the world was going to end. We had the 2013 Mayan calendar ending, but we haven't had a good world-ending thing since 2013. I feel like we've just burned through them all.
Well, it depends who you ask. There are people who argue that Trump is the world ending. So,
oh god.
Well, let me tell you,
the Antichrist.
Climatologist James Hansen in 1988 said the West Side Highway would be underwater by the year 2020. And reality is it's still there. All the Priuses.
I think it was Greta Thunberg who 12 years ago said we had 11 years left. But, you know, I've often thought
How dare you, Dave?
How dare you? But I've often thought that Greta Thunberg and David Hogg, if they were both on Match, I think they'd be paired together. Because they're just such a perfect couple. They could be quite the the lefty couple.
I don't know. I think they'd probably end up killing each other.
Well, then you also, you know, let's look at some of the wonder children of the Democrat Party, and let's look at some of our rising stars. You've got Harry Sisson. What a rube. He was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be Joe Biden's BFF and then become Kamala's BFF. Then you have David Hogg, the vice chair of the Democrat Party.
Maybe only for a little bit, though.
Yeah. And then you have the other wonder child, AOC.
Arguably the current leader of the Democrat Party.
I know. That's crazy. You never know. Jasmine Crockett could pick up steam.
We
can only hope.
And this is just Maryland, and we know he's going to be a national star one day, but look at this. Garrett Zane, rising star.
Yeah, Garrett.
He's abundantly overqualified for whatever he's doing right now. He is a million times more qualified to do anything than David Hogg or Harry Sisson or AOC. Let's look at our other rising star, because he is still rising, Matthew Foldy.
Yeah.
You know, look at it. He ran for Congress, raised like $500,000 in like a month and a half, I think, or 2 months.
Less than 100 days, he did it. Yeah.
You know, and then you have Jason Trott. He was what, deputy political director of our state party. Was our political director.
He was
you got Bradley Lang, rising star in Baltimore County, future councilman one day. You know.
Yep.
Oh, good.
I mean, that's just a couple. Brian Nidak, he's in North Carolina. I mean,
and we have several young Republicans who are registering to run for races now. And we've got Mason Carter up in Frederick County. We have Shariah Yousefi, who filed this week for delegate. Alex Harlan, who filed in Baltimore County for delegate. So the young people are stepping up.
Well, look at the young people on the Democrat side. They're too busy driving around in their mommy's Volvos to protest with their $1,500 iPhone and $6 Starbucks latte. You know,
Yeah, I agree. But
I mean,
yeah, I agree. We got a lot of good people, and they've got a lot of bad people. I think, I always make this point with AOC is, most people go to Congress and they take a pay cut because, they're coming from industry. She's got to be one of the only members of Congress that actually got a pay raise once she got to Congress.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny. And the media, no one points that out. I just thought that was kind of an interesting little fact.
and I mean,
but you do one other thing while we're in New York of lefties. I just thought about this. I heard a brief clip of it. I have not seen it, but Chuck Schumer was celebrating the 100 days, and he talked about Trump's approval rating being so low. Apparently, it's at 43%. Well, and a reporter shot right back at Schumer, said, "Well, your approval rating 17%."
And the approval rating of the entire Democrat Party is at a historical low.
Yeah, so they can only tell part of the story because the other part makes them look bad.
Yeah.
So I did not see Schumer's reaction, but Schumer then said, "Well, I mean, approval ratings rise and fall."
Oh yeah.
Well, and in the case of
Alphonse D'Amato had a higher approval rating than Chuck Schumer did. Now, Al's last year in office, his approval was higher than what Chuck Schumer's. And this may be his last year in office too.
Yeah, he may have to go. I don't know that she'll primary him. I don't think she will, maybe, but he's been there so long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, I remember as a congressman, I was a young person at the time. So these ladies certainly wouldn't know who he is. Mm-hmm. But I was a kid at the time.
We've seen him age before our eyes.
Because he was in the House, and then, and by the way, the rumor, and I heard this when I was coming up in politics, that the most dangerous place on Capitol Hill is between Chuck Schumer and a camera. Yeah. That's the most dangerous spot. Don't be.
You heard about that family from Iowa that came here? They were just taking the home movies of their, and basically knocks down the entire family, starts talking to the mom with the camera, and pushes the kids. I think he pushed them into the tracks of the Capitol subway. I don't know.
Jeez.
But, hey, speaking of protesters, hey, Corinne, you've got small children.
Do they ever running in my background? Apparently.
Do they ever protest like no cookies, no peace, stuff like that to you? Because that's what these liberal protesters
try. But because I'm a strong parent, I tell them I don't care. Go to bed.
No, but I mean,
when you pay the mortgage, you can decide how many cookies you eat.
No, what I'm saying is, like, if you look at these lefty protesters, or as our friend Ian calls them, if the DNC had a TV show, it'd be called The Agents of Chaos. And he also did one where they're like Hydra too, because Hydra in the comic books professes to be the good guys. We just want good governance. We just want world peace and so on. Yeah. But like basically it's kind of like a lot of modern day kids are raised with no rules because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Everything is feelings, and that's why we have.
That's why you have David Hogg and Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. See, if they were latchkey kids, they would not have the free time to worry about the environment, or the luxury.
Well, that's
these are all luxury issues, Corinne. If you look from the left, the tranny nonsense. Can we say trannies? I think we can.
Yeah, sure.
I probably won't.
You can say whatever you want, Toy.
The trans people. Okay, we got the trans people.
Yeah, the woke stuff. All of it's sort of the affluence concern about these sorts
of things. It's like a luxury. I think typical parents, typical families are worried about the cost of eggs, the cost of milk, how much it costs to send their kids to a private school because all the public schools are horrible now. And
I think a lot of people don't realize how bad they are. I mean, you see a lot more than I think. So I started on the PTA. I was a PTA mom. I got in through advocacy. The average PTA mom, dad, family, they're not focused on politics. And it's actually something that, when we would start bringing in, I would start being like, okay, we're going to advocate to the board for this thing. They would be like, we just want to sell cookies and buy pencils and stencils. And like, they're not concerned about policy. They're not concerned about, they were raised in public school. They're sending their kids to the same school, especially where I'm from in Pasadena. It doesn't really occur to them that things have changed so much, and they don't really hunt it down. So just because you and I see all these court cases and, you know, we've talked about policies that are horrible, most people, when they have young kids, they're just not there. They're just, you know, they're just trying to get their kids to bed on time, and they're not watching Fox News all night. And they're not looking for media and content.
They should be watching Fox News all night.
Yeah, well, I think most of them probably don't. You know, my area is pretty conservative, so we do have some more sort of activist folks here, but by and large, people just, and a lot of people are just burned out from politics in general, and more so in the demographic of people who have young kids. Yeah. And it's not a failing. It's not, I'm not saying it is a fault. It's just a reality.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, I think what's happened, I think America's waking up, though, to a lot of this stuff. I mean, look, we didn't lose the House. They were calling for us to lose the House and the Senate, even if Trump won the White House. But we kept the House. We won. Corinne, how many boards did we flip in the state of Maryland from blue to red? I mean, is there some organization that did something really cool and did that? Yeah, it was you, Corinne, Frank.
Yeah, thank you. Well, myself, Carrie Gillespie, and Steve Whisler, who was supposed to be your guest tonight, we had 62% success rate with the Board of Ed members that we supported. And what I did was, when I was ED, we looked at around the state. 16 of 24 counties voted for Trump in 2016. It backed off a little bit in 2020, and then we went back to, we regained the counties that we lost in 2020. But that's more than half, you know? So we have these red counties, and the idea was, in nonpartisan races, why don't we have more red board members? So we really went after that. The first cycle, I kind of did it by myself. I had some success. And then this cycle, I brought in Steve and Carrie to kind of help out. I was working at the RNC at the time, so I was in DC a lot. And they did a tremendous job. We had 60%. We flipped 4 boards this time. I think we flipped 2 or 3 last time. So we gain a little, lose a little ground here and there. But especially places like Calvert County, they had no Republican board members. Now they have 100% Republican board members, because over 2 cycles, we really focused on places like Calvert. So we made some great ground in Frederick. Even though we haven't flipped that board, by next cycle it should flip, and we just keep trying to go down.
You had a write-in candidate in Frederick that did phenomenal.
Yeah, the problem was we couldn't. It's hard to see. They had such a large primary. I think there's like 17 people in their primary originally, so we didn't get enough folks in through the primary to have enough to potentially flip it. But we did get a write-in candidate. But write-ins on their county is a county-wide race. That is really hard to get in a large, county to get a write-in candidate. She did
better than any write-in candidate I've seen in recent memories,
It's an easier climb if it's a small, like, city council district or something like that. A county race is just tough.
It's tough, yeah.
But, yeah, if she was on the ballot, I think she'd have won.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think she will be on the ballot next time around.
And I do think it's a good problem to have, that you have enough parents who care enough to go out and run for school board.
Yeah, I think
that's become like the sleeper races of the past several cycles is Board of Ed. People used to not care at all.
Yes, and in Frederick, in 2020, when I was running, I went to Frederick. We had nobody running on the ballot who was a Republican. I was begging people. I was, speaking at that Red Roof Inn or whatever the heck it was.
The Red Horse. Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's what it is. And I was like, please, we really.
It's right by the Red Roof Inn.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, it is. Ask me why. I know why.
There was no passion behind it. People were just like, and school boards were sort of always a little woke anyway, and always sort of leaned to the left. And Republicans were like, I don't really want to do that. It's not, not my cup of tea. So we had a whole cycle in 2020 where we had no Republicans on the ballot. So we had an entire Democrat board in Frederick, and then COVID hit and people jump back into, okay, boards are really, really important.
Yeah.
Which is the one good thing that came with COVID.
Yeah, that's good. Good, you guys are doing well. We're known in Virginia, at least Northern Virginia. We have some bad school boards. We've got Loudoun County.
Yeah.
In Fairfax, we have this guy. I forgot his name, but he has no kids in the school system. He's like a LGBTQ activist. When he was sworn in, he decided not to use the Bible, but use one of the pornographic books.
I remember that. Yeah.
Being sworn in.
Oh.
So it's just weird. I mean, I don't, want to discriminate if someone doesn't have kids in the school system, but doesn't that make you wonder? It's like, well,
okay, well, come talk to me when your school system is fighting the Supreme Court, okay?
Which Montgomery County,
that's correct. You're correct. But I think you guys, not to interrupt you, but I think that you guys should win. In reading the tea leaves,
you would think. I'm very curious to see if that's the actual tipping point when it's national news. And I think even the Democrat channels are covering it because you really can't not. Is that going to be the tipping point that we might actually get a conservative elected on our school board? Maybe we'll see.
I wouldn't bet on it. Not in Montgomery County. I hate to be cynical, but we don't really ever have we had one really good candidate last time for Board of Education, Bethany Mendel.
Yeah. She was great. And then Esther Wells as well was really good.
Did the Republicans even support Bethany? Because I noticed she was not on their
They did.
Blue Sky ballot or whatever.
It's really sad, but the best way that Republicans in the county can support good Republican candidates in nonpartisan races is by not promoting them.
Ideally, but I think they could have done if they just got behind her. Because
Esther made it past the primary, and she got close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but
I think that case will be adjudicated in the favor of the parents. I've been following it pretty closely. The problem with the case is that they're arguing it very narrowly, very much on religious grounds. But even Kagan was saying, well, what about parents who just disagree with this? And the attorney arguing the case was like, no, we're just arguing on religious grounds. And so it doesn't, I feel like it's not going to set enough precedent. The other thing that they were talking about, well, what is exposure? Are you arguing exposure? Are you arguing indoctrination? So they were fine just having these books on the shelves in the classroom, but they just didn't want the teachers to read them out loud. And so they were really sort of dicing at the nuance of this, and they were really keeping it very clear we just don't want teachers reading this to the children. I think that they could argue much broader and see if they can get a broader ruling. I think where they are arguing, they will absolutely get it, but I don't know if it's going to be as impactful as a lot of parents think.
Well, and what's interesting to me is that they were arguing, the school board's arguing, well, this is becoming a problem with attendance because so many parents are opting their kids out. I'm like, well, shouldn't that be a wake-up call to you that maybe this isn't the best thing to be teaching?
Yeah. So, and the point that was made by the attorney at the time was that argument had never even been made until the case was appealed. It wasn't, it was never said to the parents in any of the documentation that's why. It was just that they believe that this is what should occur. So they're pretty much caught lying as far as that argument went. But having said that, you're right. If people are opting out, that's a really good referendum on what you are trying to teach their children.
Yeah, that's right. One thing that amazes me about the school board meetings is that sometimes parents will show up with the controversial material. And when they get up to speak, they start reading literally what is being taught or literally what is in the materials. And they're almost always shut down. No, you can't read that. You can't read that. Because it's obscene. But the question then is, well, if I can't read it here in front of you, why aren't you able to read it?
Right.
So that's a tactic that's always used that I've seen at the school board meetings to just confront them with, hey, this is the material that you're letting kids read. So.
Well, we've talked our way right to 8:15, so I think we should do it.
Time to go to Missoni's.
Time for Missoni's.
Time to Missoni's. Greg and Chris have our favorite tables ready to go. But one day we are going to do.
I saw on their Instagram the other day that they have a girl dinner, like little tray, and it's like a mini espresso martini, a tiny thing of French fries, and a little bit of Caesar salad, and I'm like, that's amazing, and a scoop of ice cream.
Right, if I mention your name, can I get a discount?
I never mentioned you're a friend of Governor Bob's, and that'll give you probably a better discount.
All right.
All right. Well, we will be back next week with another exciting guest.
Real quick, Corinne, any final thoughts? What that organization that wiped out all those Democrats. What's it called?
What's the Maryland Alliance for Parents and Students. And I do want to give a little plug because Steve was supposed to be here tonight. He is running for delegate, and he was amazing in helping us. So I did want everybody to sort of know that he is in the running up in Carroll County for that. He's a current school board member, so he'll do a fantastic job.
Good.
Excellent. So as we go to Miss Sony's, here we go. Bye, everyone.
Good meeting you, Corinne. Good seeing you, Jackie.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, tomorrow night, Montgomery County Republic Club celebrating first 100 days with David Bossy tomorrow.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
You know, we got David Bossy and Seth Howard, Delegate Seth Howard, will be there telling us the maybe good, the bad, the ugly, the really ugly, horrible session in Annapolis. So, hope to see everyone tomorrow night, and we'll see everyone next week again. Take care. Good night.
Let's go down to Missoni, where Italian cuisine shines.